Hello and welcome to today's edition of our video. Here's something interesting that I just thought of now. Okay, in psychology we're learning about language and thought. This chapter includes topics on problem solving, and there are some really interesting questions here that I'd like to read out to you. Number 1. In the Thompson family, there are 5 brothers, and each brother has 1 sister. If you count Mrs. Thompson, how many females are there in the Thompson family? The answer to the first problem is 2. I know you might have thought 6, but think about it, they're all related. Here it says, the only females in the family are Mrs. Thompson and her 1 daughter, who is a sister to each of her brothers. I know, right? Number 2. 15% of the people in Topeka have unlisted telephone numbers. You select 200 names at random from the Topeka phone book. How many of these people can be expected to have unlisted telephone numbers? The answer, of course, is none. You won't find any people with unlisted phone numbers in the phone book. Some people get confused with the statistics, 15% and 200 names, but you have to look at it logically, first of all, because people tend to think, once they read these problems that you need to apply some sort of math or do some sort of equation or something, but really just try to answer the question first, see if it's needed before you go ahead and do it. Number 3, here's one that actually really got to me. When I read it and I read the answer, I still didn't understand actually. Well, after a while, of course, I figured it out, but here it goes. Susan gets in her car in Boston and drives toward New York City, averaging 50 miles per hour. 20 minutes later, Ellen gets in her car in New York City and starts driving toward Boston at 60 miles an hour. Both women take the same route, which extends a total of 220 miles between the 2 cities. Which car is nearer to Boston when they meet? Obviously, the answer is they have to be the same distance from Boston when they meet. Now, quite honestly, I didn't understand that explanation at all. I was still like, no, why are they the same distance? So I'll be able to draw you a picture. Okay, so Susan gets in her little red car in Boston and drives towards New York. Ellen gets in her little purple car and drives towards Boston. It gives you the average miles per hour that they're driving, but you don't need to know that. And some people, that's what confuses them. I know that's what confused me. So, they're driving towards each other and they're on the same route, which is 220 miles between the 2 cities. Again, you do not need to know that. When they meet each other, they're going to be the same exact distance from Boston. I mean, when you meet up with someone anywhere, aren't you in the same place? I mean, maybe you figured that out right away. Maybe it was just me. For some reason, I did not understand how that worked, but now I do. So yeah. Number 4. The water lilies on the surface of a small pond double in area every 24 hours. From the time the first water lily appears until the pond is completely covered takes 60 days. On what day is half of the pond covered with lilies? So once you read this, you think, oh great, math. But no, that's actually not the case. There's really minor math, if you even consider this math. You have to work backwards with this problem. If you think the whole pond is covered on the 60th day, and it doubles in size every day, working backwards, you'd think, okay, what's on the 59th? It has to be half of that. Wait a minute. Wasn't the question asking, when is the pond filled only half? 59 is your answer, and that's it. Most people think, wow, I need to do all this math, I need to find out, I need to go from day 1 to day 2 to day 3, all the way to day 60, or day 30, or whatever they might think it is, to find when is there half of the pond covered in water lilies, when in fact, you do not need to do that at all. This is a very common thing that people do, and it just causes more work. People don't see that life is a lot simpler than they make it out to be. Well, at least some things in life. Number 5. Here is a really interesting one, and I couldn't even guess an answer to this when I first read it. At sunrise, a Buddhist monk sets out to climb a tall mountain. He follows a narrow path that winds around the mountain and up to a temple. He stops frequently to rest and climbs at various speeds, arriving around sunset. After staying a few days, he begins his return journey. As before, he starts at sunrise, rests often, walks at varying speeds, and arrives around sunset. Prove that there must be a spot along the path that the monk will pass on both trips at precisely the same time of day. What? How do you prove that, you might ask? I'll show you with another little drawing. Now, drawing and graphing things is really a great problem-solving strategy. It helps you visualize things, since a lot of people learn and see things better when they're right in front of them. So for this problem in particular, the best and maybe only way to explain the answer is through a graph. As you can see, I have my graph set up. The time from sunrise to sunset is when he travels, and on the first trip he goes from the bottom of the mountain to the top, and on the second he goes from the top back to the bottom. So the line I drew here represents his first trip from the bottom to top. It says he travels at various speeds, different altitudes, he stops a lot, so it's just a random line. This second line I just drew is his second trip. Various speeds, various altitudes, he stops a lot. Nonetheless, he always has to cross his first path at some point. Same time, same altitude, same point. That's it. That's the best way to describe it. I hope you enjoyed this little problem-solving session. Have a wonderful weekend, Diana. I'll see you on Monday.